continuing our discussion on the category of mitzvahs bet adam achavero and commandments between man and man, that the Mefarshim, the commentators, give basic differences between commandments between man and God and commandments bet adam achavero. So, what are some of the basic differences between commandments between man and God and mitzvahs bet adam achavero? So, one of them is the following issue. We seem to have an apparent contradiction. What is the role of machshava in halacha? When a person has, let's say, a bad thought, but they don't act on it, is that an issue? Is that not an issue? It's a machshava ra mitzdaref l'maisa, so it seems to be an apparent contradiction. There's the Mishnah Nazir which says if a woman takes a neder, she takes that she's not going to have ice cream, cake, or whatever, and she goes ahead and apparently violates the neder by eating cake and ice cream, but unbeknownst to her husband already annulled the vow. So therefore, strictly speaking, she didn't violate anything because there was no vow. It was already annulled. On the other hand, but she didn't know, so when she ate the ice cream or cake, she thought she was doing something wrong. But so the question is, if you have a machshava ra, even though there was no maisa. So the Torah tells us Hashem yislach la, she needs atonement. So we see from here, one who has a machshava ra requires atonement. On the other hand, we know the famous Gemara in Kedusha, machshava tova mitzdaref l'maisa. You have a good thought, that connects to an action, but machshava ra, that doesn't connect. They don't mitzdaref l'maisa because God's midah prunia, midah of chesed is greater than the midah of prunios. So we see from here the machshava ra is a mitzdaref l'maisa. In fact, in the famous Orach Chayim HaKodesh at the end of Parashat Vayechi, when he talks about the brothers, Joseph talking to the brother, Atem chashavtam l'ra, you thought you had bad intentions, but God had other intentions, and God worked it all out. And Orach Chayim writes there's no need for atonement, because he says just like someone, if you attempt to give someone a cup of poison, but you're giving him a cup of wine, no harm done, you don't need atonement. So we have an apparent contradiction. On one hand, we see a machshava, we see from the case of the Nazir, by the woman and the husband, that it requires atonement. On the other hand, we see the case of the Orach Chayim HaKodesh, it doesn't need atonement, or machshava tova. How do we reconcile? So there's one of the classical Svarim on Chumash, and known as the Pilpul Sefer, the Klei Chemda, Rapatsky, he points out as follows. There's a Gemara in Menachos. Someone goes fishing on Shabbos. They don't know that, either they don't know you're not allowed to fish, they don't know Shabbos, whatever the case may be, they go fishing. So if you're successful at fishing, you can violate a biblical prohibition of trapping. So what happens if someone goes fishing on Shabbos, and lo and behold, when he throws in the net, not only does he get the fish, but he also gets, he saves someone's life. A little child fell off into the river. So we see that, so that's the Gemara's question, what happens? So there's a machlokas in the Gemara, Rabba versus Rabba, and different gerses who says what. But the issue is, do you go basa maisa or do you go basa machshava? Do you go by the act? So then the act, you did the biggest mitzvah, pikuach nefesh docha Shabbos, you saved someone's life. No greater mitzvah than that. On the other hand, he had intent to desecrate the Shabbos. So how do we reconcile the two? So that's the machokas. If you go by Maisa, it's a tremendous mitzvah. If you go by Machshavas, that's the discussion in the Gemara. Pashas we follow Basa Maisa, and therefore it'd be part of the discussion. So it comes along the Klei Chemda and says, this whole machokas, this whole dispute between, in the Gemara, between Rava and Rava, whether someone fishing on Shabbos, if you catch a baby, if you go Basa Maisa, Basa Machshava, that's only in the realm of a mitzvah ben Adam lamakom, a commandment between man and God. And when we get into mitzvah ben Adam lamakom, then we can discuss the role of machshava, of your thought process. But by mitzvah ben Adam chavero, by interpersonal mitzvahs, everyone agrees that you go Basa Maisa, we go by the bottom line, the action. That's what the Klei Chemda writes. That the whole issue of machshava only plays a role in mitzvahs ben Adam l'makom, and not in mitzvahs ben Adam l'chaveron. And we have a similar principle in Gemara discusses many times. Mitzvahs strichas kavana. Mitzvahs require intent. That's a whole. Well, it's a machokas in the Gemara whether mitzvahs require intent. Apparent contradiction in the Rambam. But the bottom line is we paskin on a mitzvah min Torah, we paskin mitzvahs require intent. On a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, we paskin mitzvahs don't require intent. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, the Rogachev, they all point out, when do we have this whole issue of mitzvahs svichas kavana? The Gemara discusses it by sukkah, by lula, by shofar, by mitzvahs but adam lamakom. Then kavana is critical. Your intent is critical. However, by a mitzvah adam chavero, you don't need kavana, or it's not critical. Even if you don't, because even if you don't have, let's say you just did bikar cholim, but you visited the sick for 2 hours, even if you weren't thinking that you're doing the mitzvah bikar cholim, nevertheless you had a tremendous impact on the cholah, and therefore you get the mitzvah, because the mitzvahs, when it comes to the adam l'makom, it's the maisa. It's the act, so therefore you have to have kavana, it's all about the machshava. But when it comes to ben chavero, it's result oriented. If you drop $100 bill, if $100 bill falls out of your pocket and an ani picks it up, you get the mitzvah tzedakah, because the bottom line, you help someone else. So we see this whole issue of machshava, of mitzvah svichas kavana, that's by mitzvahs ben am l'makom. But by mitzvahs ben am chavero, it's all about the result, it's the totzah, so therefore kavana isn't critical. And that's how the Rogachev explains as well, that the halacha is someone ties someone up, and then a lion comes and eats them, or they hire a mercenary, so even though they're not liable to capital punishment, but they're still, it's gram etzicha, you're still labeled a murderer. Masha'enkin, when it comes to Shabbos, if someone indirectly violates Shabbos, you are not labeled a machal Shabbos. On a Torah level, you have not violated Shabbos. So what's the difference? How come when it comes to indirect action by murder, you're labeled a murderer, albeit without the punishment? When it comes to Shabbos, you're not labeled a desecrator of Shabbos. And the answer is because when it comes to ritzicha, that's result-oriented. We don't care how you did it. The bottom line is the person's dead. And therefore that's what we're concerned about. But by Shabbos, it's the actual act, osasa kol malacha, therefore you don't do the act directly, so you're not labeled a machal Shabbos. So we see a fundamental distinction between mitzvahs ben anu l'makom and mitzvahs ben anu chavero is in the realm of machshava, mitzvahs svichas kavana. With this we could understand perhaps an apparent contradiction. The Torah tells us, Vayikach Moshe atzmos Yosef, that Moshe took the bones of Yosef out of Mitzrayim. And yet we know in Sefer Yoshua the Sefer Yeshua, it says, but Bnei Yisrael took Bnei Yisrael took the bones of Yosef out of Mitzrayim. Not only did it say they took him into Israel, but they took him out of Mitzrayim. So which one is it? So if we have a video camera, it would be Moshe taking them out. But Chazal are telling us a very important principle, that if one begins the mitzvah and someone else finishes the mitzvah, the one who finishes the mitzvah gets full credit, not only for ending it, but for beginning it as well. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu started it, but Bnei Yisrael finished it, so Bnei Yisrael gets credit not only for starting it, but even finishing it. That's the Ramah, right? By Yavam Noram, the one who daven Slicha should be the one to daven Shacharis and Mincha. And what's the reason? To the Mother of Ramah, it's because a matchal b'mitzvah omer ol gemar. You start a mitzvah, make sure you finish it, because it looks like you're not being machshiv the mitzvah if you don't finish it too. So we see that the closer seems to be the important role. However, we say every day in davening, Mizmar Sheach Hanukas Habayis LaDavid. We attribute the building of the Beis HaMikdash to David HaMelech. Yeah, we all know David at best began the Beis HaMikdash, but Shlomo HaMelech is the one who built it. So it should say, Mizmar Sheach Hanukas Habayis LaShlomo. So from the Beis HaMikdash we see, it goes by the beginning, the one who started the mitzvah, they get credit for everything. And from Atzmos Yosef, the bones of Yosef, we see the one who finishes it gets credit. So the answer is, the Mefarshim point out that, or perhaps we could suggest that maybe it's a fundamental difference between the mitzvah of Binyan Beis HaMikdash, of building the temple, and Kfuras HaMeis. Binyan Beis HaMikdash, building the temple, is the classical mitzvah ben Adam L'makom. You bring karbanos, you daven there, it's the house of God. It's all about ben Adam L'makom. So therefore, when it comes to ben Adam L'makom, Makshava is critical. Your thought process is critical. Since David, his whole life, Achasha'alti Me'is Hashem, Osa Avake Shifted Beis Hashem Kol Yimei Chayei. His whole life he wanted to dwell in the Beis HaMikdash and live there. So therefore we say Mizmar Sheach Hanukas Habayis LaDavid. It's all about the Makshava when it comes to mitzvahs for Adam Makom. But when it comes to B'Adam Chavero, the classical Kfura Chesed Shel Emes, you're not expecting, by other times you do someone a favor, at the back of your mind you're expecting payback. However, here, you're not waiting to get paid back anytime soon. So they point out that that's the mitzvah of Chaver. That's all about results. So Yosef saying, don't do me any favors to take me out of the Nile River and drop me in the desert somewhere. Just leave me there. When it comes to B'Adam Chavero, it's all about the bottom line, not the Makshava. And therefore that's why when it comes to B'Adam Chavero, it's the one who closes the deal. That's the Iker. Because you can think about it all you want, to visit the sick, to do Nicham Avelim, to help in the Kfura, but if you don't do it, you're not really helping anyone. And just to conclude, that's what the commentators point out, more Derek Drush I would say, that we know every morning we put on, or most mornings we put on our tefillin, the tefillin shel yad, and the tefillin shel rosh. And the Bali Musar say and others point out that the two pairs of tefillin, or the one pair of tefillin, but the tefillin shel yad, the head, one for the head and one for the hand, they represent the two different categories of mitzvahs. The hand, the arm represents action, bottom line, that refers to mitzvahs b'Adam Chavero. But the head is all about the makshava, that's mitzvahs b'Adam L'makom. And if you noticed that we always first put on the shel yad, then the shel rosh, we take off the shorosh and then we take off the shoyad. So we're never only left with the shorosh. The only time we wear the shorosh is when we have the shoyad on. And our rabbis are teaching us that to be a complete Jew, you have to be meticulous in mitzvahs ben adam l'makom adam l'chavero. You have to be meticulous in both aspects. However, if you want to start somewhere, you want to ground yourself, start taking chumras, so that should be on mitzvahs ben adam l'chavero. Of course, the basics we have to do of both categories. If you want to take an extra chumrah, be more machmir on lashon hara, even when, strictly speaking, let's say it wouldn't be a violation of lashon hara, so take on a chumrah, but still don't say it. Because the question you have to ask is, are you becoming a better person by speaking lashon hara, even though it's not technically lashon hara? So that's what the two categories represent, and that's how we reconcile. And that's one of the basic differences between mitzvahs, but adam l'maka, but al chavero, is the world of kavana. Mitzvahs shvichas kavana, the world of akshava. Akshava plays a much more major role in commandments between man and God, since it makes sense, since God knows what we're thinking, no one else does. We don't even know our own motives half the time. When it comes to mitzvahs b'nal chavero, it's much more result-oriented, hence the role of machshava doesn't play as a vital role as in mitzvahs b'nal makom. We'll have to continue going through other differences between mitzvahs ben adam makom and mitzvahs ben adam chavero.